All right, welcome to the relationship show. This woman writes this post asking for emotional needs to be met early on. She's 33. She says, I have been on one date with this guy who's 36. He's super attractive, friendly, nice, funny, and has a good job. We had a good time, but I was left feeling like I'd like him to ask more questions about me. And then I had texted him, and he didn't text me back for a day. Okay, and that is one thing that I mention in, I believe it's like how to get a second and third date. It's like after the date, you wait a few days to schedule the next one. Um, I'm not saying like ignore women or anything like that. I'm not saying that at all, but it's like sometimes you need to create that space, especially early on. So, like after the first date, you give her about 3 days and then you contact her. That's when you initiate contact. And what that's going to do is really, well, it gives you another opportunity to read her interests and read her really presuppositions about how relationships are, and is she presupposing or believing if relationships work out or if relationships are bad. And so oftentimes if you wait that 3 days and then you contact her and say, hey, I had a great time, I'd love to see you, when are you free to get together, or what days are you free this week, or something like that. But it's like just calling her and then seeing what her attitude is. You want to do that first before you set a date. But she'll be like either really excited to hear from you, or she will even like message you before that time, before those 3 days, to initiate and talk about how fun or whatever she's talking about. But some women, what they will do is be upset when you wait 3 days. And so they'll often be like angry or be like passive aggressive, or even bring it up or say like what's wrong, or they'll do things like sometimes if you do set a date, then they'll stand you up on the date because they're upset that you didn't text back or initiate after 3 days. But you want to really further identify what this person's like and what their beliefs really are towards relationships. And so those people that are really angry that you didn't, text back for 3 days, or angry or upset or passive aggressive, and they display those kinds of behaviors, you don't really want to go on another date with them. It's like you just leave those women aside, move on to someone else, because if you do pursue those types of women, then it's like it just causes so much drama down the line, compared to going with those people that have the presuppositions is that like relationships do work out, and then we had a great date, and he for sure wants to go on another date with me. um, Coming from a place of, you want to pick people that come from a place of, this person still cares about me. Maybe he's just busy or whatever is going on. It's like he still cares about me though. And I believe that relationships are a good thing and they work, versus people who have the opposite, which is like, he doesn't care about me. He's out there cheating. He's out there doing this, messing around. And relationships never work. It's like you want to separate those two categories really of people, those mindsets, those beliefs, and pick the people who have the positive, empowering beliefs, and that's who you want to date. This situation, she seems to be someone who falls in the category that relationships don't really work out. She says, some history about me. I have PTSD and anxiety and anxious attachment from a long-term 11-year very abusive relationship from a very successful, good-looking man that reads like perfection on paper. Yeah. And so I'm not saying, she's to blame or anything like that for the situation, because I do believe that was very difficult and probably very traumatic. But at the end of the day, it's like, if you still get involved with someone like this, it's still going to have a lot of drama, and create a lot of problems in your life. She says, I am in a very regular therapy and will continue with it. I also have been dating guys that believe I'm way more attractive than them. So she's saying guys put her on a pedestal. She's probably very beautiful. This may be something I subconsciously seek out. I don't know. Maybe if she's bringing this up right now, maybe that gives me the idea that she likes to be really like praised and acknowledged, and she really needs that validation. So probably she's a little bit insecure and dote on me like crazy. And last two didn't work out because the one started to do really annoying things. Parentheses, please just trust me on this. And it became too much for long-term compatibility. The other moved to my city for the pandemic, and then we'll soon be moving across the country again. So friends. Back to the current date, he's more attractive than me and doesn't ask me as many questions as I like, and the texting thing bothered me. Yeah, so it's like little things are bothering her. I mean, she says it right there. And when little things bother people, it usually stacks into bigger things. Yeah. So I let him down, and he was really surprised and challenged me on it. Basically listed out all the good things we had going. What's he do? So she backs away. What's he do? Classic. He tries to use logic and reason to convince her how to feel. Does not work. She's like, oh, that's a good point, but it's just I can't feel this way. It's like, you're not going to convince a woman how to feel based on logic and reason. From a guy's perspective, he probably is not educated in that as far as communicating with women. Most superficial, I'll admit, as I'm attracted to him and said as much. I don't know. He thinks I'm funny. He cooks good food and I like to eat, etc. And said it was up to me, but he'd like to see me again. I have been told I'm really generous with my words and observations by past dates, and apparently that's rare. I'll tell guys when they look good. So she's very assertive, very blunt even. I'll tell them the little things I notice and like about them. That's probably not. That's okay. And now I'm aware that I do this and I'm told it's unique. Okay. People who seek to be unique have a feeling, are basically driven by a feeling of importance. If you look at like the Tony Robbins 6 human needs, it's like, well, usually people are, well, the vast majority of people are driven by that sense of importance, but it's like, but that's really a lot of to do with culture. But with feminine and masculine things, it's like mission driven, being able to walk away and mean it. That's more like importance driven. Whereas like women are often like, if it's like a feminine woman, it's more of like a connection and love thing. And so love is like their most highest value as far as the 6 human needs go. And the two of them really intertwined really creates a good connection. Little side off topic kind of there. But it is very interesting to kind of observe things that way from that perspective of the 6 human needs. But what it can also give you a hint, what kind of ties it into this is like, if women are like very importance driven, it's not always the case, but sometimes they tend to be more in their masculine energy. And so you will see things like, bluntness, like kind of what she was demonstrating a little bit, guardedness. And oftentimes that comes from when people are hurt. So like when women get hurt, sometimes they adopt this masculine mask in order to really protect themselves, to not be vulnerable and not get hurt again. And it could be a situation where this woman's kind of experiencing this based on her past and now her current actions. She says, so I agree to go out again, but even though it's so early on, I'm going to need some of my emotional needs met if this keeps going. So she's going to lay down the law. He's like, yeah, and basically create a bunch of rules for him. But what she's going to do by taking this kind of action is she's going to make him feel like she's controlling him. And, 3 C's of masculinity, controlled is one of the biggest pain points that men don't want to feel. So they don't want their women to basically try and control them, tell them what to do. Yeah, this isn't going to, if she acts on this, it's not going to work out well, especially if it's like a long-term situation. She does these rule things, she thinks she can control the guy, and then this happens over a duration of time. Like having a bit more curiosity about me. She's like, you need to be more curious about me. I don't know. That's from that perspective. It's like, if she says that, what's the guy's reaction going to be like? Okay. Or he's probably not even going to want to be curious about her or want to do the things she says because she's bluntly telling him to do things and trying to control him. And asking questions and just a text a day or whatever. Basically some reassurance because I was very surprised he wanted to see me again. So it goes back to that insecurity with her. She needs that validation, that reassurance. Actually, completely overwhelmed and triggered would be a better description than surprised. And so she's having trouble dealing with all her emotions, and she's making it this huge thing, and it has to be this way in order for me to be happy, or it has to be this specific way. And if it's not that way, then I'm going to feel overwhelmed or triggered. Yeah. Is this okay to ask for so early on? No. I mean, that approach, it's like you want to pick people that just make you feel the things that you want. You don't want to just like change people and try to approach people like as a project to change so you can make them into what you want. It's not a good way to go. You just pick people, if somebody doesn't really meet your criteria, you move on to someone else who does. She says, I'm big into forcing myself to ask for what I need in relationships. Well, you don't have the best track record for relationships. She says, but not at this stage. Is that okay? How would you receive it? There will be an emotional reaction if you try to control guys or criticize guys in how they behave or how they act, or it almost eliminates their sense of freedom. And freedom is one of the biggest things that men really strive for, is that sense of freedom. She says, and if you want to send me an internet hug or have any soothing words that you'd like to bestow on me as a bonus, I'd happily accept. I don't know. That last statement is kind of like, oh, take care of me. Oh, I need to be, I don't know. So like women like this, personally, I would totally avoid. Yeah, and I'd do what I can to identify, these patterns that she's doing very early on and get out as soon as I could. And one of the most effective ways is, after a good first date, you wait just 3 days and that's it. You don't have to, it's not about ignoring people. If they text back before then and, they seem to be very excited, it's like, well, you just make a date right there. It's like, if they text before those 3 days, maybe on like a second day, then you're like, well, you did a good job. And now she's chasing you. Now she's in this more like feminine role. And that's when you set a definite date and then go on another date and then just have a fun time and repeat. If she does text you upset before those 3 days, like, why aren't you texting me? Or I thought we had a good time. That's when you just don't ever text again. Or you might say, it's not really going to work for me, or just break it off right there and then just move on with your life.